transition ones. They could just dim when they're ready.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Marion County Board of Supervisors Candidate Forum. I'm your host, Steve Woodhouse, with the Marion County Express and Espresso TV. Joining us tonight are the Marion County Board of Supervisors candidates from left to right, or excuse me, Steve McCombs, Casey Nicholson, and Jim Mueller. And we're just going to have a few questions and help you learn a little bit more about them, as voting, of course, will take place here pretty soon, and you can start voting early at the auditor's office beginning October 16th if you haven't already requested an absentee ballot. But let's get things started. I will let each candidate tell you a little bit about themselves and why they're running. And we start with Jim Mueller.
Thank you, Steve. My name is Jim Mueller. I've been a resident of Pella for over 30 years. Raised my family here in Pella. Had 3 daughters that went to Pella High. So I'm familiar with this auditorium and have spent many evenings in here watching band concerts or plays or whatever. The reason that I'm running is I really feel strongly that it's important to give back to our community. I'm a big believer in Mark 10:45. I believe Jesus taught us to live a certain way, and that is we are here to help serve our community and serve fellow man. I feel like I've got lots of good things that I can offer to the community, and by community I mean the entire community, the entire county, not just one locality. I'm a conservative from a financial perspective. As mayor or council member for the city of Pella, we focused very intently on reducing debt. We did so very effectively. I'm a team builder. I communicate very well with all the people that I work with, even the ones that I disagree with. I always like to say that you can always tell a good communicator because they actually treat with respect the people that they disagree with and still count them as friends, even though you may disagree with them. I'm all about the community, as I said, and I'll focus on the community-wide issues. And ultimately, I want to make sure that everybody is treated with respect and listen to all their issues and all their concerns.
Casey.
My name is Casey Nicholson, and my husband and I and our family live outside of Knoxville, so we live in Marion County proper. Our children go to Knoxville. Mostly we have so much investment into the community. I have the exceptional or rare privilege of working with both Pella and Knoxville in my professional career, and I've worked in municipalities in both budgets and expenditures. So for the Pella Police Department and for the Knoxville Police Department and for Knoxville City in general. My main focus is to see a need, fill a need, and I feel like for Marion County in general, why I decided to run, the EMS issue in general was a main push, but also I feel like there needs to be more community outreach to the entirety of Marion County. Not that there isn't great outreach already, I just feel like there needs to be more to all of those citizens in the smaller communities such as Hamilton and Otley and Attica. Those people may that be forgotten, and I just feel like in general, Marion County needs to reach everyone. And a lot of times I feel like they don't have a voice, and I would like to have more community outreach that way. From my professional standpoint, I deal with a lot of community outreach for the police department. I did Helmets and Hot Dogs, which is a safety event after school each year. I was one of the main orchestrators this year, where everything is free. We do everything free for the children, and it's just a great way to bring the community together. And I feel like Marion County needs to come together so we can serve each other to care about our fellow man.
Yeah, I'm Steve McCombs. I live in Tracy, Iowa. I've been married 53 years to the same lovely lady. I'm a lifelong Marion County resident, and I'd like to run again because I believe we have started some things that I'd like to see through to the finish. And I agree with both of everybody here that Marion County needs to come together as a whole in order so we can get things done. I'm not a politician. I'm just a plain old country boy, but I try to do what's right. I do listen to everybody, but sometimes people have different opinions, and we need to respect those opinions, but we need to do what's in the best interest of everyone. I worked for Marion County Road Department for 20 plus years. I was in Marion County Sheriff's Reserve for 11 years, so I know Marion County very well. I don't think there's a road here that I haven't driven on. And to preface that, I think we need infrastructure in place in order to make things work for Marion County. So that's kind of why I'm running again.
Thank you. And you each kind of touched on this in your opening statements, but I'll start with Steve McCombs. You've been on the board for a while now. What do you believe should be the top priority for our county government?
Well, I think the top priority for county government is to listen to all the citizens' needs and not just put one focus on some personal needs or whatever. I think we need to, and I agree with Casey, we need to get together and we need to look at some of these smaller communities and their needs, and how we do that is a kind of a difficult situation on funding, but I think Marion County as a whole is growing, and I believe that I would like to think I have been a part of that for the last 8 years, and I'd like to continue to do that.
Do either of you have an opinion on what should be the top priority for the county?
All right, yeah, actually, I would say probably the first thing that we would need to do is to evaluate all the county services that we provide and really try to identify any shortcomings that, again, are countywide, just to make sure that we can strategize and make sure that we backfill those in order to make sure that people are receiving the kind of services that they expect and that they deserve. So that would be my first step. And then the second step was just make sure that we are keeping a mind full with all the decisions that we make, not only to fulfill our need, but also make sure that we're making the decisions that will position us well in the future, whether it's 5 years down the road or 10 years down the road, because we all know that planning and budgeting, where you end up if you don't have a plan is just purely by circumstance, by chance. And unless you have a plan, a strategy in place, you're going to be lost and spend probably money or funds or time or effort, focus that you really don't need to. So I'd say evaluate the services, backfill the shortfall, and then strategize on what you need to do in the future.
I certainly agree. I do think that more needs to be focused on the roads in Marion County, since a third of our bridges need to be replaced. And Steve, I know you're on this, and you've done a great job. The infrastructure needs to be replaced. We have a huge amount of roads in Marion County, and the money doesn't take us nearly as far as it used to. Say, for instance, they're not getting nearly as much for the same amount of money that they've gotten which is for everyone in Marion County. You go to the store and you're getting less for the same amount of money that you paid 5 years ago. Inflation has not been kind to anyone. So I think it needs to be focused on the roads, because we can't go places or get emergency services if there aren't bridges in place, or the detours are so bad that EMS can't get there. So definitely the bridges and the roads, and how to carry our money better in general, to put that towards the roads to make them last longer.
And Casey, you kind of touched on what I was going to ask next. Each budget season, the departments come in and present their budget proposals for the year. How would you prioritize the level of funding for each department? How would you prioritize the allocation, given that the amount of dollars, the fact that they don't stretch as far, given coming up in the future? You know, how would you prioritize?
Well, the biggest budget for Marion County is definitely the roads. I know a third of the budget goes towards the roads department as it is, and then it's probably the Marion County Sheriff's Office. The Sheriff's Office has the most amount of actual employees, and the roads department is working with less people, but they have a massive amount of more work. So we have 850-ish miles to cover in Marion County, which is a hellacious amount for the little amount of people that we do have. Plus, you know, there's going to be overturn, people are going to leave, there's aging workforce that we have to work on, which I know Tyler is working on, and he has done a great job on that. But I'm going to have to say that the thing that should be focused on for budgets that would be the most important to me would be roads to get them there, and then emergency services go hand in hand with that. I mean, you can't not give emergency services the money that they need to operate, because everyone in Marion County uses the Marion County Sheriff's Office for emergency and non-emergency. It is imperative that they stay afloat and that we have the money that we need to keep them that way. There's no reason why they should have a power outage because they can't afford a backup generator. So that's how I think money should be spent.
How would you prioritize, Jim?
I think I would agree with the 2 points, but I think I'd reverse the priorities, and that is public safety first, whether it's law enforcement or emergency services, fire service, ambulance service, sheriff for protection. You dial 911, you expect somebody to come to your aid, and I think that's something that we need to make sure that everybody's expectations are met at that. I always look at the baseline things that are, life issues first, and then after that, we start looking at all the rest of those things. So certainly first and foremost would be the emergency services. After that, I would agree, the county roads, the infrastructure, whether they're bridges or the regular roads, repair and maintenance. Frankly, I was shocked. Several meetings ago, we were talking about budgeting and those things, and frankly, I was shocked when I learned that there's not enough money in the budget, number one, to repair all the county roads or all the roads that we've identified as deficient. Not that we're abandoning them, but we're band-aiding them at best, and we simply don't have enough money to go out there and replace the ones that need to be replaced, let alone add new roads as needs demand. We're kind of in a holding pattern, just waiting for everything to circle down into back to gravel, which is something that I don't think any of us would necessarily sign up for.
Go ahead, Steve.
Well, I agree with both of them. I mean, obviously, roads are near and dear to my heart. 20 years ago, I was part of the team that bought the current property at Junction 92, and I don't think anybody's familiar with what's going on out there, but we're trying to build a secondary road facility that will actually benefit all of Marion County. And I'd like to say that we're building that property without asking the taxpayer for any more money. That was a struggle. And to add to what they said, infrastructure is very important for Marion County. Without infrastructure, bridges, roads, and being able to maintain them, everything else is a moot point. EMS services, the sheriff's department, it's a moot point if you don't have roads to get you from point A to point B. And that's a big budget item. What most people, misconception that a lot of people have is the property taxes are funding the road. Well, that's kind of a fallacy. People would be surprised at the percentage of the property taxes that actually go to the road department. Most of the money from the road department comes from the gas use tax or from grants from the federal government, which is getting harder and harder to get. So, you know, Tyler does a magnificent job of doing what we do with the money we have. So that, you know, that's a very important part of the budget. And EMS, I made my thoughts already that it is an essential service. I mean, but how do we fund it? I believe that that's up to the taxpayer to decide, not me. But at least they're going to have an opportunity to do that. But like I said, roads is a big part of the budget, and it's a struggle to come up with the money. But I would like to think that we're going to do that better in the future.
Thank you all. And I was going to touch on the essential services tax, and as we're recording this, the committee has not yet been finalized, to my knowledge. But nevertheless, if that goes to the voters, you'll be proposing basically a tax that'll be about 65 cents per 1,000 taxable valuation, or somewhere around there. How would you reconcile that kind of extra burden on those taxpayers that are already struggling here in Marion County? Let's start with you, Jim.
As I said, the first thing that we need to do when we're allocating budget funds is to support public safety and emergency services. I think there are locations and areas that are underserved, and I think it's incumbent upon the county to reach out and embrace everybody that's deficient and make sure that everybody is in a situation where those services can be provided in a timeline that they're necessary. And I think the funding as they are right now in some of the smaller areas, you know, whether it's an RV or any of the smaller communities, it's very difficult for those communities, those areas, in order to support and provide all of those services as you would expect. So I think it's important for all of us, whether it's a countywide tax or some other ability, to make sure that we have the funding available for that. And you say 65 cents, we're not really sure what it's going to be. I mean, it could be anywhere from 5 cents, 10 cents, 25 cents. We don't know what it is, because until that committee comes through, makes the recommendation, gets all of the emergency services representatives together and come with a coordinated plan. And I think having a coordinated plan, again, is one of those things of who covers what area, how do you respond, multi-jurisdictional, you know, efforts. I think that's one of the critical components to make sure that we're spending funds efficiently and effectively. We may not have to have that much. We may not need that much. But I would tell you, when, again, I'll go back to my 911 example, is when you dial 911 and expect, because you need help, I don't think anybody's going to complain about 25 cents or 50 cents per thousand on their appraised value of their property. So I think it all comes into perspective of saying what's really important, and I think public safety is probably one of the #1 things for me.
Casey.
In general, as a former 911 dispatcher myself, I was a dispatcher for almost 10 years. I know that the general population does not really understand when they call where the ambulance comes from, and they don't really need to know, they just want one there now. So the EMS tax, you know, you get the fire department, part of your property tax goes towards fire services. And I think in general, most of the population just assumes that EMS is already considered an essential service. So to educate the population to say, no, this is not funded, and a lot of smaller communities communities, like Indiana Township, for example, operated just on volunteer basis, no refund on anything. They were just running the ambulance to help the community for over a year, not billing anyone. They were just there to provide that service. So I mean, there are people out there in our community that want that to be an essential service, and I don't think that anybody is really going to have a problem paying that, because when you dial 911 and you're in an emergency situation, you expect an ambulance to show up, and you don't want to wait minutes because there isn't an ambulance available. So in general, I feel like it comes back to you need to educate the population on how and what the EMS tax is going to go towards and why that is a benefit to them.
You know, in my mind, the EMS services are kind of a moving target. A lot of these smaller communities depend on volunteers, and it's getting harder and harder to find volunteers. But also, like I've said at other meetings, you know, I believe it's the taxpayers' choice to decide whether they want to pay for that service or not. But you have to at least give the EMS services a chance to sell that to the public. There has to be an advisory council put together, which I don't believe has been done yet, and they will determine what needs and personnel that are required for whatever department around the county. I mean, you know, I've said it before, not every department needs a heart surgeon on board. But what's very important to me is, like in these smaller communities, at least they have the capability of transporting somebody and get them quicker, another half hour quicker to a place or meet with a EMS service that can provide the correct service to that person. And it's going to be a tough sell, and I've told them that. But in my heart and in my mind, I could not say that EMS was not an essential service. I had to vote that it was an essential service. But it's going to be up to the advisory council to sell that to the public, and I believe it's the taxpayer's right to make that decision, not mine, not 2 people, not 3 people.
Okay, moving on from there. What role do you believe that the county government should play in economic development? Obviously, Marion County is growing pretty well on its own already, but what role should the county government play in economic development as far as housing or offering incentives to businesses? Let's start with you, Steve.
The role of the county?
Yeah, the role of the county.
I can't hardly understand you.
I'm sorry.
Well, I believe it's the county's role to help a lot of these communities in economic development, and we've helped Pella with Prairie Ridge, we've helped Pleasantville with Atkins. We took over the VA property because Knoxville didn't have the financial capability of doing that, and the federal government wouldn't sell it to us until we stepped in. I believe we've already played a role in economic development, but I think we need to continue to do that. And that's another reason why I'm running it, if I want to see some of these projects through to the finish.
Casey?
If we have the means and capability to help these communities to future our economic development, I think it's absolutely imperative. Marion County is our home, and my children are going to grow up here, and I want them and their community to be better and the economics to be booming. I don't want our community to dwindle and people to drive outside the county just to get basic needs. If it's in our facility to facilitate these economic developments with either tax abatements or other things to draw in more businesses into our community, I think it's absolutely in our goal to do that. There's no reason not to. And like what you said with the VA, it's going to be great things. I'm glad that they finally did something with the VA. As someone who drove past the dilapidated buildings with nothing going on, it's going to bring in housing, which is very needed in all of Marion County. It's been, job opportunities have only skyrocketed in Marion County, but the housing has been kind of stagnant, which only hurts us. So to move forward and to make the community better, absolutely.
I would say that the county has a significant or critical role in economic development. I think the county can absolutely work to identify projects, programs, and be a coordinator of the resources that are available, whether they're state, federal, local resources, negotiation, and implement those. And I think the county can and should participate financially if you can identify that that there is a direct return on investment in that. The VA property is a perfect example of the county acquiring that property, taking care of it, making it sellable, and now selling it back to the city of Knoxville and getting it on the tax rolls. So it's clearly an investment that will pay dividends, financial dividends back to the county over time, as well as the social dividends in curing a blighted area and making sure that the areas around Knoxville are back functioning and fully utilized.
Should the, and this kind of ties into everything. By the way, I apologize for my coughing and my sniffling, and if anybody is offended by me calling these candidates by their first names, I apologize. I've known them all a long time and work with them regularly. So, but anyway, a couple of years ago, the county decided to hire, can you understand me, Steve? Can you understand me?
Here, go ahead, I'll translate.
I'm going to go ahead, okay. A couple of years ago, the county hired its own legislative lobbyist. Should that continue? Do you think that's been effective, or should there be another approach to increase Marion County's voice among the legislators? Let's start with you, Casey.
Well, to hire a legislative lobbyist, you're going to go into legislature to try to get funding to bring it to Marion County. I think it has benefited in drawing attention to Marion County and trying to bring money into the county. I would have to look at the county return on that. If it's made a significant amount of money or a significant amount of benefit, I would say. If there's any benefit at all, which I think there is, then there's no reason why not to continue with that.
Well, yes, I believe that our lobbyists have been quite effective in the state legislature, especially, before that, we didn't really have a voice, and our lobbyist keeps up on what's going on. She lets us know what's going on, and she voices our concerns. So I think a lobbyist is quite effective. I guess in this day and age, I don't know how you get by without one.
Quite frankly, I would have to evaluate and make sure that we are getting the bang for the buck that we're spending for the lobbyist. I'm a bit different in the perspective of I'm more of a handshake, face-to-face, negotiate, understand, and get to know the people that are legislating on my behalf. There were many times in my 16 years of service, whether on council or mayor of the city of Pella, that we made our trips to Washington, D.C., and we went independently as a group and met individually with all the legislatures that represented us. And I would tell you that in no uncertain terms, we were able to bring back benefits back to the community that we would have otherwise not have achieved. And just building that relationship and that understanding, that communication, I think paid tremendous benefits long term. So in this particular question, I would say, yes, I would support it as long as we can demonstrate that there is a return on that investment. And I would supplement that by saying it's incumbent upon whoever sits at the county supervisory level to make sure that they build those relationships with those people at the state and the federal government level in order to make sure that our voices are heard, our concerns are addressed, and any opportunity that we have in order to bring benefits, whether that's economic development or whatever benefits they are, that we can bring those back to the community and share with our constituents.
So thinking, obviously you're going to have difficulties with, the state government keeps changing the rules, and you have other outside factors affecting the way county government can run. But what is your long-term vision for Marion County? We have a strong manufacturing base, we have a strong agricultural base, and obviously tourism is great here. Should we focus on any one of those or continue to focus on all three? What do you see as like the long-term best livelihood for Marion County and its residents? Let's start with you, Jim.
I'll go back to that economic development. I would absolutely focus on continuing with our manufacturing industry for support for that. But also, I think you need to take a multiple approach. Manufacturing and industry. And in industry, I also mean agriculture, and I also mean the industry of tourism. We've got the largest single lake in the state of Iowa, just a few miles outside of town, and we really don't advertise it, or at least not in any significant level. We don't have a lot of tourism based upon utilization of water skiing, fishing, and those kind of things. I think we have a great opportunity in order to build a lot of that tourism base around that lake. And it's not just in Pella, it's also across the river over on the Knoxville side. I know there have been talks about doing bicycle trails on that side of the lake. I would absolutely support that. I think it's critically important in order to make sure that both sides and that everybody has an opportunity to enjoy those kind of recreational activities. So I guess it's kind of a long answer to a short question, but I would take a multifaceted approach, and it's all of the above. I would support agriculture, I'd avoid manufacturing industry. I would also absolutely encourage continued development of housing. That's one of the biggest complaints that I hear of all of the industry leaders, that people have to drive so far. If you live locally where you work, you're more likely to stay. You're more likely to spend your money in your community. You're less likely to call in sick. Weather doesn't impact you nearly as much. So all of those things are critically important in order to help the community, those industries survive and thrive. And also the satellite industries, the grocery stores, the restaurants, everything else that also derive benefit from those industries. Again, whether you're agriculture, whether you're recreation, or whether you're manufacturing, we need to order to make sure that we support all of those.
Steve, do you have a comment?
No, I agree with Jim. I think all of them are important. We do have a strong manufacturing base. I wish we could draw in some different types of businesses. I know Carla is looking at that pretty hard. But the tourism industry, it all goes hand in hand. I believe that they should all work together somehow, but that all costs money also when you're trying to put something together. So whether you choose one above the other one, I don't know how I can actually say I would be more inclined one way or the other to lean toward manufacturing or tourism together. But I believe they're all important.
I honestly think that people in county are our biggest asset, and I've always said that. I think the people who are drawn to our community want to live here, and they want to build a home here and want to make the community better. I said earlier that we had shortage in housing, but our job opportunities have grown, which is wonderful, so we need more housing. But also just remember, Red Rock is a flood control lake, so it's very hard to advertise that when it is a flood control lake as a recreation. So just remember that, because it's all on the Corps of Engineers what decide what the lake needs to be at to control the river. So that's hard to say. Obviously it's a rec lake and my family uses it, we're on it every summer, and it's a great lake. But I think in general, our biggest asset is the people that live here and want to live here. And I think by growing our communities economically and with, obviously our road structure is wonderful because then you can drive on the roads to get to work. So I just think that we need to invest more in the people who are coming here for the homes that can be built and their lives that can be lived here.
I have to compliment Steve McCombs and past board of supervisors as well as current ones. There's been a lot of streamlining and efficiencies found within county government. But should we have to do any more, like if there is some funding reductions, in what areas would you look to first to make cuts if that has to be done? Let's start with you, Casey.
Overall, for the budget, I can't say that I would focus on any particular area. I know Tyler has done a great job on looking at the long term, on trying to cut expenses because he knows that it's going to be harder to get machinery, it's harder to manufacture things, it's harder to replace things, so he's worked in the long term to cut out the expenses to make it easier for Marion County to pay for those things. He puts money away from like the art fund and he builds up the money in those funds to focus on one project, which is wonderful. He's doing a great job in that. As for other departments, like public safety, it's really hard to cut any money out of public safety because we want our population to grow. So our population is growing, so then we probably will need more public safety because our calls for service per year only grows and their expenses are going to grow with that. It would have to be an overall analysis on how we're spreading the bottom dollar out to all of Marion County, but also what is the best way to spread that money to get it to be most effective. So in my opinion, we give money to the libraries, which is wonderful, and I don't think that that money should be cut for any reason because reading is a source for education and our children and our future, so I don't want that to go away. So it's really just the bottom dollar on each department, how they're spending that money, and is it being spent the most effective?
What was the question? How do...
Yeah, if you have to make further cuts, like if we have a big budget reduction forced upon the county government, what departments or areas would you look at first to make those reductions?
Well, that's a tough question, Steve. I mean, every department is important. I think, our biggest expense is usually in the salary line and also insurance. So we have to look very hard at how we do our staffing. And I believe that we're currently understaffed in the road department. And Tyler is doing a fine job of that. I don't know that, the budget cuts, I don't know that we've had to do that yet, but when we do look at something like that, we look at how best we can use our dollars to our best advantage, whether that be in roads or anything that pertains to wages. That wages are always a tough one for us. We had a compensation board in place now that goes for elected officials. That was always a struggle for me because I did not like the process of how we had to divvy up the pay. But that's changed now. We'll still have the compensation board, but we'll be able to look at each elected official individually. So salaries are a big part of the budget. And I would say that's one of the biggest things.
That's a very difficult question, especially for people that have not served in the position of a county board of supervisors. And it would be inappropriate, quite frankly, for me to having not participated in that whole process to really call out one department or one area that I would target for cuts. My commitment to be mindful of the expenses is I will absolutely go into every one of those budget meetings with an eye on efficiency to make sure that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck, and to make sure that I listen to all of the issues and concerns of the constituents, and make sure that everybody is treated effectively, fairly, and completely in that process. And I would not go in there with a predetermined idea of, here's a department that's not important, or this department is more important, or another one. I would go in there with an open mind and say, okay, this is potentially our issue. Let's work together to find and strategize and make sure that we come up with the best decision for everybody in all departments.
In your professional careers, how have you worked with different groups and different people? Because obviously, as a supervisor, you'll work with independently elected officials and obviously employees. But what skills do you bring to the table that would best serve you in working with a diverse group of people like that? Like, how would you come together and how would you work best with people? That's kind of the long route I'm getting to. We'll start with you, Casey.
Well, in my professional career, I deal with all of the community. Anybody who walks into the police department, I will speak to anyone and everyone. They deserve due respect on just simply having a problem and needing a solution. So I think you're going to come face to face with all of the community, and they have every right to be heard, whether it's big or small problems. Everything's a problem to them, and I have no problem listening to it. Everybody needs to be listened to. And I think in general, all three of us here, we want to represent the community. We want what's best for the community. We want to be their voice, and we don't want anyone to be downtrodden. I can't speak for them, but I assume as much from us being here. We don't want anyone to be downtrodden, and we want what's best for Marion County, and we want it to only excel for the future.
Thanks, Steve. I would say that I'm a pretty easy guy to talk to. I love to banter. I make a relationship and an understanding. I agree with Casey that, we need to make sure that we treat people with respect and make sure that we encourage them. Whether we agree with the size of their problem or not, it's still the problem that they've brought to us and they want to talk about, so it's clearly important to them. And we need to make sure that we make time to listen to that and give them the open ear or the opportunity to make their case and to talk with us about it. Sometimes that's really all it takes, is they just want somebody to understand and they want somebody to listen to them. You don't always have to agree, you don't always have to take action, but they want somebody that will listen to them. And I think that's critical with these things that we've done in all of our professional careers, is making sure that we've got good communication skills, that we make sure that we respect everybody, whether we agree with them or not. It is how you treat people. There's a saying out there that says people will not always remember what you said, but they will remember how you made them feel. And that's one of the things that I try to live by, is you make people feel important, that they're valued, and you give them respect, and they will honor you with their friendship. And that's something that I always look forward to having.
Yeah, I totally agree with the respect part. I think that I'm pretty easy to get along with most of the time. I do like to, I think it's important that you listen to people and what they have to say. I think the most important part, and what I try to do, is just be honest. Just tell the truth. I mean, it may not be what they want to hear, but tell them the truth, and you don't have to remember what you said to them.
Thank you all. I'm going to try to wrap things up here. We're coming up on an hour. I just wanted to give everybody the opportunity to make one last point. Anything further that you'd like the voters to know before they come in and cast the ballot? And I'll start with you, Steve. Do you have a final point?
To be quite honest with you, Steve, I'm having a hard time understanding what you're saying. It's echoing up here. No, like I said, I just want to give 4 more years to Marion County. I think I gave an honest last 8 years, and people that know me know that I usually say what I mean, and sometimes I say things I shouldn't say, but I do mean them. But like I said earlier, there's things I've started over the years here in Marion County that I want to see through, and I want to make sure that they come to the best ending possible for the citizens of Marion County. And I believe it's up to the citizens of Marion County to make important decisions that affect them financially, like the EMS. And I also believe that the road department is very important. Like I said earlier, without the infrastructure, everything else is a moot point.
That one is actually very easy, Steve. I would tell you, and I would tell all the voters, my focus is on countywide issues. It doesn't stop at one side of the river, over the other side of the river. It is the entire county, corner to corner, community to community. I do believe that the Bible calls us to serve, and this is one way that I think that I can help serve the community, the entire county, and I can help.
I just want to thank everyone for being here. And I honestly think that between the 3 of us, I don't believe in any way that Marion County can go wrong. I know all 3 of us want to be here. We want what's best for Marion County. We want economically to go ahead and to go forward. I know all of the fiscal things that we are all conservative about, and we all want what's best for the bottom line for Marion County. We want our dollar to stretch as far as we can to get the most of it. We want people to come here. We want people to live here and want to make our communities better. We want our children to grow and to prosper in this community. We want to see it do better. Obviously, I would love to be on the board, and so would Jim, and so would Steve. So I think in general, our people are our biggest asset, and we just need to move forward helping the people of Marion County.
All right. Did you have something else?
Through all this process, I did not know Jim. I did not know Casey when we all started this earlier this year. But I agree with Casey. I think we all want the best for Marion County, and I think I'm glad now that I can consider them both friends.
Well said, and thank you, Steve. I agree wholeheartedly with that. I agree with Casey that I don't think that voters can really make a bad decision here.
Did you have anything you wanted to add, Casey, or are you good?
I'm good. I said it.
All right, and I'm good as well. I just wanted to thank everybody here in the Pella High Auditorium, and thank Pella High, Damien Place, Susie Jones, and her great cast of Freaky Friday for helping us set up and clear the stage coming in. Thank you to Monty Godek for filming everything and streaming everything in Pella TV. And thank you all for watching, and be sure to get out and vote. Thank you all for your time, and have a great day.
Thank you. Good time.